My name is Bruce Wenigmann. I have multiple roles within the Red Cross. I'm the regional lead for disaster spiritual care. I'm involved with integrated care condolence teams, which is primarily when there's a disaster related fatality. I've done deployments, several. I'm a stat supervisor, and finally, I'm also a member of the Virtual Family Assistance Center, where I have 1 to 2 shifts a week, responding to people asking for support and finding resources, primarily involving COVID related deaths, but also a number of other areas as well.
My name's Lori Jenkins. I'm from Twin Falls, Idaho, and I don't know what my title is, donor ambassador. I check people in at the blood drives.
Well, hi, my name is Ray Barnicoat. I'm a Red Cross volunteer I just completed my first year as a volunteer. I am one of the transport specialists, and I transport blood to and from Helena, Montana to Great Falls.
Well, my name is Sandy Harnar, and I currently am a local DAP provider, and I am also done some deployments. Let's see, which gap did I get? I got the sheltering gap, and I also deployed my very first time as medical.
Hi, this is Jack Smith, and I have a few different roles for the Red Cross. I'm currently a DAT supervisor. I'm also the RC Care application lead, and when I get deployed, I do damage assessment, I do the delivery of emergency supplies.
Hey, my name is Brenda Brenchley, and I am a blood donor volunteer. I help out at the blood drives and checking people in and helping wherever I can, greeting the people and making, just keeping an eye on them after they've given blood a little bit.
I'm Stephen McKague, and I help out at the front desk at the main blood drive in Idaho Falls, getting customers signed in.
My name is Rona Frye, and I volunteer right now in engagement services. So I line people up to do donor ambassador work at the blood drives. And I recently signed up to do disaster runs and in the case management category and other jobs related to that.
Yeah, Patrick Terry, and I've been involved with the Red Cross as far as blood and platelets since 1969, and in 1972, I began being a volunteer in the San Jose, California Red Cross Hospital Services, is I guess what we call it now.
I'm Deborah Bailey, and I am a blood donor ambassador.
Hi, my name is Ashita, and I'm part of the onboarding and training team, and I'm also a blood donor ambassador for the Red Cross.
Well, I'm Johnny Sue Elliott. I've been DAT, I've done lots of deployments, I've been on the workforce engagement team, and I worked from home 2 or 3 different deployments and then got our people out to the disasters.
Hey, my name is Lydia Kuderna, and I am a fairly newly minted blood donor ambassador with the Red Cross. And I'm really enjoying my new role doing that.
I was among the first 3 disaster spiritual care sent to the campfire in November of 2018. We got there 3 days after the fire started, and it was pure trauma and stress on the ground. A lot of people who had literally escaped through flames, some others who obviously did not.
So my dad got into a rollover accident in 2009, and he was ejected from his vehicle and transported by life flight to St. Al's in Boise. And he needed blood. And I said, well, can I donate? And they said, no, you can't donate to him directly, but you can, donate blood at the Red Cross. And I said, okay. Like a year and a half later, I retired. So the next time I saw her, I said, hey, I'm ready to volunteer. So I started volunteering there. That was my first foot in the door, I should say. I just did snack stuff. And I really enjoyed it. And then I met Jake, and he said, hey, I really need somebody in Twin to help out with drives. Would you be willing to do it? And I said, sure.
I've been a donor of blood for a number of years. In fact, I am coming up on my 6th gallon, I think, on this next donation up. But, I always felt that it's the very best gift that anybody can give is to donate blood. I mean, my God, what else can you do to potentially save the lives of 3 people with, each unit of blood that you donate?
Honestly, I am a member of the Medical Reserve Corps, and the Red Cross put out a call for help for Hurricane Florence in North Carolina, and they needed medical help, and I volunteered to go. That's how I got started, and I had such a great experience, I decided to stay with it, with the Red Cross.
The impetus to look into the Red Cross was kind of twofold. One, I just retired after a 35-year career, and still felt I was fairly young and wanted to do something, didn't want to do something that, I was getting paid to do, that I had to do. And climate change is something that the world has not addressed properly, and the disasters, the weather-related, climate-related disasters are just going to be getting worse and worse and worse. And I thought, put those two together, well, I can at least do something about helping the people that are affected by these disasters. So between retiring and kind of the state of the world when it comes to climate-related disasters, it seemed like a good place to start. So I did some research and found out I looked at Red Cross, I looked at FEMA, different organizations, and the Red Cross seemed to end up going to the places where I think I'd like to be and help, and so that's why I started with Red Cross.
Well, I'm a retired secretary, and we spent so much time indoors during the COVID, and since then I have things to do, but I do get tired of being in the house all the time. And I also wanted to be of service in the community, and this is one way I can do it. I like the fact that with the Red Cross, you pick the days you want to work and the hours you want to work, and it makes it a lot easier than having like a thing you have to go to every week at the same time. I wanted to make a difference in our community by helping others, and this is one way I can do it.
Well, I was looking for volunteer work. I'm on disability, and so I have a lot of free time on my hands, and my mother passed away, and it was kind of hard on me, so I needed something to fill the time. And so I went looking for volunteer work to do, and I found work with Red Cross, and it was work that I could do, and so I've stuck with it. It's been about 6 years now.
Years ago, my cousin in Wisconsin belonged to the Red Cross, and she traveled all over the country, and she also belonged to the Peace Corps. And I was inspired by her. So in about 2011, when I was still on my nomadic journey, I decided to join where I was at the moment in Modesto, California. And I joined the DAT team and did fire calls. And then they gave me an opportunity to do Hurricane Sandy in Maryland and New York. And I took on that. And that was a huge, huge experience that I'll never forget.
Back in 1969, I was stationed with the Air Force in Germany, and I was on a 3-day pass. And when I came back, I had a phone call waiting for me, and it was the base chaplain, and he told me that my father had passed away, and but he was making arrangements for me to leave my base and get to where I could take a military hop and get back to the States. But there was no hops going to the West Coast. I'm originally from San Jose, California, and that's where my dad passed away at. So I'm sitting there at McGuire Air Force Base, and they're telling me that there's no way I was going to get there within 2 days for anything going out to the coast. So they said, can you go on an airliner out of Philadelphia? And I said, yes. He says, well, do you have any money? And I said, no, I don't have any money. And of course, this is before credit cards, or at least credit cards for me. So they made a call, and I'm sitting in the terminal there at McGuire Air Force Base, and an older gentleman came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, son, are you the one that needs to get on a commercial flight and get to the West Coast? I said, yes, sir. He said, well, follow me. Well, it turns out that he was a Red Cross volunteer, and they had a cash fund that helped airmen out. It was just a loan. It wasn't a gift. So he found out that I needed about $200, and he gave me $200, and I caught a ride to the Philadelphia airport and was able to get on a flight and got home in time for my dad's funeral. So I was so inspired by that man as a volunteer that he got up in the middle of the night to come out to help me out. And of course, when we got home, and we wrote a check and thank you note to him for doing that. So I never forgot that. And my first blood donation was a few months later in Northern California. And then a couple years after that, when I was going to college in San Jose, I stopped at the Red Cross there and made another donation. And while I was there, I looked around and I saw all the people in the center, and I thought back about that gentleman that night in 1969 at McGuire Air Force Base. And I asked, I said, is there a lot of volunteers here? Is everybody paid staff? And they said, oh no, at least 2/3 of us here are all volunteers. And I looked around and I thought, well, I got some spare time, I can help out. So I did that.
I've always volunteered since my 20s, so I really enjoy volunteer work, and I used to give blood when I was younger as well. After we retired, I wanted to get more involved and get a sort of permanent volunteer position, and my grandmother always volunteered with the Red Cross her whole life, and she inspired me to choose the Red Cross.
So I've been interested in the medical community and in the computer science industry too. And I really wanted to have more experience in the medical community. So I went to my counselor and asked her what options I had. And she told me about the Red Cross. And once I once I was interviewed, I got set as a blood donor ambassador, but then I really became interested in the role of the onboarding and training team. So I decided to go with that. And I've been doing less of the blood donor ambassador and more of the onboarding and training team just for time purposes, but I really love both jobs so far.
When I was a little girl, one of my sisters and I's favorite things to do was go through this box of postcards that our dad had sent home to his family when he was a 18, 19-year-old young man, farm boy from Idaho, when he's on his own and he's stationed in the South. And he was in Mississippi and Louisiana and Georgia and Texas. And he sent these postcards home to his family. They were called penny postcards, and because they cost a penny, and servicemen could mail them for free. And several of the postcards mentioned that when they stopped somewhere, there would be the USO or the Red Cross gals, was his quote, there with coffee and snacks, sandwiches, whatever. But the very best one was he'd been home on furlough and he was on his way back, and the train stopped in North Platte, Nebraska, and they were told that there was going to be a canteen available at the site. A Red Cross canteen was at the station. And the train only stopped for about 15 minutes, but the servicemen on the train all got off and had a nice lunch. They had 32 women serving sandwiches and cookies and milk and coffee and oranges and apples and even hard-boiled eggs already peeled. I'm quoting his story here. It surely makes me think the Red Cross is okay. This is in the 1940s, about 1944. We had, so anyway, then fast forward to 1976, and our little valley in Idaho was flooded by the break of the Teton Dam. And my dad's home was destroyed, and the Red Cross was there to help. Well, flash forward again to Hurricane Katrina, and I'm like everybody else watching all these newsreels and everything about Katrina, and I made a phone call. And I wasn't able to go. I was working, and I wasn't able to go to Katrina, but it just kept me in the back of my mind. I just kept thinking, I want to be part of this outfit. And so a few years later, I was able to jump in and got busy, and the rest is kind of history. I've just done all these deployments.
I think maybe I heard the ad on television or the radio about the critical shortage of blood in our country and realized the urgency of it. And I was formerly a blood donor, but since I had a heart attack about 11 or 12 years ago, I haven't really attempted to donate blood because of some of the medications I take and medical care I've received. But I was already to hit this sign up. I mean, I was on the donation website ready to go. And then I thought, maybe I better check with my doctor. I don't know what hit me. And I checked with him and he said, absolutely not. But his nurse got back to me and said, perhaps you can help in another way. And so I was out in my car the next day and I went to the Red Cross office and asked if there was any type of way I could volunteer to help in the Red Cross. And one thing led to another, and here I am.
I remember talking with this one woman who was in tears because of all that she and her family had gone through. They lost their house, they lost their jobs, and they really didn't know what was going to happen next. And spent quite a while talking with her. Mostly it's just listening, to be honest, and to help people, give them the opportunity to tell their story and to know that they've been heard. You know, you never know quite what kind of a difference you make. But a few days later, I saw the same woman again, and she had this big smile on her face, and she said, I just came back to thank you, because what you, our conversation, it just helped me so much. And she gave me a big hug. Of course, this is all pre-COVID. And, honestly, you don't know. There's nothing you can say when people have lost a loved one or some other form of trauma. There's nothing you can say that will take that pain away, but you can be with them. You can help, you can let them know that they are not alone, that they're not losing their mind because they're overwhelmed, that that's a normal reaction to an abnormal situation.
I just enjoy like being with the people, and then all the workers know me now too, so that's really nice. It's kind of like Norm on Cheers, because I walk in and they all go, "Hi, Lori," so that's kind of special. I like it.
It's my one and only national deployment I've been able to do so far, at least for the Red Cross. And it was just the experience of being in a true disaster area like that, and seeing the people and knowing that even little things were touching their lives in a big way. And the Red Cross is just, it's so amazing on what they're able to do. And it just kind of changed my outlook on things. I've done a lot of mission work with my church, outreach and stuff like that, but this was at home and and a different side of it. And it just, I don't know, some of the people that I met there, some of the clients, and they were just, it was just an amazing experience all the way around.
Yes, I have a particular story from my first deployment that really made me feel like I was in the right place. My first deployment was to the U.S. Virgin Islands on the island of St. Croix after Hurricane Maria just ripped that island totally apart. I mean, it flattened it. I had assigned to me a woman that was with a event-based volunteer, but with the Red Cross in St. Croix. That's where she lived, that's where she'd grown up. And so I was there for 3 weeks, and for the bulk of that 3 weeks, we were 12 hours a day driving, hiking, trying to get to these isolated houses to try and help these folks. And finally, after it had been about 7 days and the weather was oppressively hot and humid, she would just show up in the mornings at the Red Cross headquarters on St. Croix, and then she would, when we finished with our 12-hour shift, she would just disappear. So finally I asked her, her name was Frances, her name is Frances, I asked her if I could give her a ride home, and she just didn't think that I should be able to do that. This is Red Cross business. I said, absolutely, I'll give you a ride home. So I gave her a ride home, and it was a windy road up to this house on a hill that had a beautiful view. But I noticed sitting next to the house is a ceiling fan pointing up. I looked closer, and it turned out that was the roof of her house. So all this time, and we're still in a rainy season, she's been showing up, working 12 hours a day at the Red Cross to try and help people. We weren't delivering food to her either. We were delivering to all these other people on the island. All the while, her roof is completely off her house. I was stunned. I said, Frances, you need to get some help, get that roof put back. Oh, don't worry about it. We've got other rooms in the house that we can mostly get dry. And she had no thought for herself. She wanted to make sure she helped all of her neighbors first, or the other people on the island. So that was fairly inspirational to me. It's like, think about the others first, and worry about yourself later. Later on, a bunch of us Red Cross volunteers pitched in and managed to get the roof back on her house.
In Modesto, there was called the Poinsettia Drive, where everybody that donated $50 or more during the year got a free poinsettia. So at the end of our day, we had one left, and she lived in Riverbank. And we drove up to the address and we looked at the house, and it was a very, very, very humble home. And we looked at each other and said, there's no way that lady can afford to donate to the Red Cross. But we got out, took the plant, and walked up, knocked on their door, and she was a little teeny, tiny lady who was about 90 with a little stocking cap on. And she greeted us and invited us in, and we went in and we saw how sad and lonely she was. She had recently lost her son, and we gave her the plant and we gave her a hug, and we sat there and just let her talk. And I noticed that her loneliness, she couldn't cover it up anymore. She had a big smile for us when we first got there, but eventually the sadness just flowed from her. She was overwhelmed with sadness. So I made a promise to myself and to her that I would come back and visit her often. And I came back with my daughter once, and I came back with another Red Cross lady once. And then I told the whole team that she needed visitors, and they all said they would go visit her. So one by one, people did and spread the love. And then I went off on another road trip, and when I came back, I saw that she had died. So my memory of that is that we showed up. She never did donate that year. It was like what our leader called divine, that she was meant to get a poinsettia and meant to be visited by us. So we did what we could. We spread the love to her. And I'll never forget feeling so lucky.
The satisfaction and to get back at the beginning of my story is the friendships. It both, male and female, the friendships that I've made, and ultimately married one of the friends that I made. But that to me is where the satisfaction is. Even though as a courier you pretty much drive alone, but you're gonna meet some friendly folks when you get to the next blood center.
I was on an interview one day, and I was interviewing this lady that was very experienced. She was donating blood before, and she had to stop because her blood was thinner, and she wanted to still give back to the community, and she joined becoming a blood donor ambassador instead. So I was interviewing her, and I was like, one of the first questions that we have was like, what is your interest in the Red Cross? What brought you here? And she started telling me of the story about how her neighbor's house got impacted by a fire, and the whole entire thing burned down, and the Red Cross came in immediately to help with the disaster and just comforted her and her neighbors. And she felt so grateful, and she felt so understanding that the Red Cross was such a big help to her emotionally and physically, just there for her. And she really wanted to give back to the community and help out with the Red Cross. So I thought that was really inspiring for me, and that's one of the stories that keep me going in every day. So
one time I was in California and at a fire, and we went with the bulk distribution in a box truck and went out to different sites and handed out supplies. And this guy was just devastated. He'd lost everything, every tool he owned, and just everything in his life was gone. And he was just devastated. And I handed him a shovel, and he got tears in his eyes. A shovel, a shovel, and a kind word, a smile, and he just broke down. It was just heart-wrenching. Well, a few days later, and he was just defeated. I mean, the countenance, stooped shoulders, eyes, just so sad. His just was so sad. And a few days later, I was leaving the hotel breakfast room one morning, and this couple, this gentleman and his wife, were coming into the breakfast room. His whole countenance had changed. And he recognized me, and his wife recognized me, and they said, "Thank you for being here. You have no idea what it means that you've been here to help." And it was a shovel. just giving a gentleman a shovel to help him start back on his road to recovery just amazed me that it would make that much difference.